Ladies and gentlemen, today's guest is Anne Graham, retired professor of law at Hamlin University Law School. She is the founding director, Business Law Institute, and she is a student at seminary right now. Welcome, Anne.
Hi, it's good to see you. How are you?
Good, thanks so much. Thank you for accepting our interview request. Uh, as a law person, as a lawyer, I would like to get your insights about the recent developments in Turkey and get your comments on what's going on in Turkey and what should we do as the Kurd people. So, as a person who visited the Hizmet places in many parts of the world, how would you comment on Hizmet and how do you know Hizmet? How did you learn about Hizmet and what's your comments?
Well, let's start at the beginning. I've been very impressed with the goals of international peace and understanding through dialogue that's promoted by Hizmet. I was invited to a Ramadan dinner in Lubbock, Texas. I was a law professor at Texas Tech University, and the Ramadan dinner was a big community-wide event. It was wonderful. The speakers introduced the topic of peace through understanding, and I immediately felt attracted to it. So then I was invited to take a trip to Turkey, and I knew nothing about Turkey then, except where to find it on a map. And I took my two then high school aged boys with me on that trip. It was a life-changing trip for all three of us. We visited a number of really top-notch first-class universities. We visited hospitals. We visited schools. We visited after-school care in places of rural Turkey that did not have educational resources that they needed. I was very impressed. And I came back. I made several subsequent trips to Turkey. I had a grant from Texas Tech University to study the Turkish financial system at a time when the US was suffering, and Turkey, by contrast, had had some financial reforms in its immediate past that made it seem to be doing better economically through that crisis in 2009 than the US was actually. So when I first went to Turkey, Turkey seemed poised to be an international leader. I was devastated when I found that all of these wonderful institutions were crushed. And more than that, the people were crushed. People who had devoted their lives to education, to helping others, were fired from their jobs as public servants, as judges, as lawyers, as professors, and as everyday people. And not only were they fired so that their family had no opportunity to make a living, many of them were imprisoned. Many of them had their passports revoked. Many people who were already here, for example, in the US, were afraid for their families. It's a terrible situation. Resources that had taken 20, 30 years to build up, in less than a year were gone. It's such a sad humanitarian crisis.
Unfortunately, this is a very sad story, and millions of people are suffering under the tyranny of the dictatorship in Turkey right now. So, before going deep in that part, how would you describe the distinctive features of Hizmet and Hizmet followers and the leader of Hizmet?
Well, of course, Hizmet means service. And I think that's the hallmark. Service and education. I understand that Fethullah Gulen realized that in areas of the world where people are suffering, one way out of that is education. Mm-hmm. And not a religious education, but basic education. I've never felt that Hizmet pressured anyone or even talked that much about their own religion. What they did do was live their religion, live service, live care for all people. And at a time when anti-Muslim sentiment in the US was really rampant, they were able to show Americans on a one-to-one human personal basis that violence, terrorism is not Islam. That is never promoted in true Islam. And I thank Fethullah Gulen for saying that on every occasion. Every time there's a terrorist event anywhere in the world, whether perpetrated by nationals of that country, whether by Muslims, whether by Christians, Fethullah Gulen always steps up and says, a terrorist can never be a true Muslim. And a true Muslim can never be a terrorist. I myself am Christian, and I'm currently a seminary student studying for ordination in the Lutheran Church. And I believe that open dialogue among religions removes the fear. True religion of any sort is not grounded in fear. We can't make anyone have genuine spiritual beliefs. They have to come to those beliefs on their own. And hopefully, even if they've been raised in a religious belief, they come to question it, to understand it. There's nothing wrong with doubt. In fact, if we don't examine the roots of our own religion, we don't really understand it. Mm-hmm. And I think by getting to know people who believe differently than we do is a way to enhance our own religious beliefs. I think every religion that I've encountered at its heart is about human life. In Christianity, we say heaven is here now, and we are working for life here, the real life, the eternal life on earth as it is in heaven. And that we should do unto others as we would have them do unto us. We should feed the hungry, care for the sick, visit the imprisoned, work for the marginalized, host the immigrant and the stranger, treat them as our family. And truthfully, the Hizmet movement subscribes to all those values.
Great. Great. Thank you for these comments. Now, as a law professor and as a very experienced American person, um, what do you advise to the people who were purged and fled the country and they came to United States and democratic countries in the West, maybe Canada, Australia, England, and some other countries? They are trying to build their new lives. So what do you advise to them? And do you think that the Hizmet will continue to thrive and go to a better place?
That's my hope. And it's definitely been a traumatic situation. Even people who were already in the US suffered trauma because they knew of their friends and family back in Turkey, some of whom could never leave. Many of them could never go back to Turkey, at least for the foreseeable future. That is a trauma, and I think we have to recognize it as such. You don't get over that easily or quickly, and you don't get over it without facing it and talking about it. You don't get over it by being too seclusive. I know that this is probably the hardest thing when you come to a new country and you've fled an oppressive regime. I think maybe your first instinct is only to trust those people who are from your country or in your group. But I have faith that the people of Hizmet who are in other countries will not remain contained in their own communities. I've seen them here in Austin reach out to others. And I think that's the hardest thing after a trauma. And it's the most constructive thing. And I and others want to support that. We want to say, come have dinner with me. Come eat at my table. Come meet my children. Your children are just like mine. They're kids. They love to play together. You have knowledge that I want to talk about. I want to know about you. I want to know about your life. And I want to commend you for all the steps you've taken to rebuild your life. I think that's what dialogue is all about. It's all about people.
That's great. Thank you so much for this comment as well, because having such a lovely people like yourselves in all over the world, actually, we got a lot of good stories in Greece, in Germany, in other democratic countries of the world, which our friends fled to. They were welcomed very well, and they were embraced with love, compassion, and mercy. So that's great, and this is maybe one of the fruits of Hizmet, because as you said, these are the principles and hallmarks of Hizmet movement. So since they behaved like that, God embraced them with such people who are embracing them with the same hallmarks, with the same characters, with the same features. So that's really great. As a law person, I would like you to comment on the Turkey's recent situation. Do you think Turkey will thrive again and remove that dictatorship and get some kind of pressure from international institutions like European Court of Human Rights, international institutions like United Nations, etc.? What do you envision on that?
I think the future is still uncertain about that. Uh, Certainly, I hope that happens. I hope that human rights will again be restored in Turkey. But as we've seen in the US, our own democracy can be threatened. There's no place in the world that's entirely safe from greed. And I think at the heart of it, that is what threatens all of our freedoms. It's a tension in human life, the temptation of greed, the temptation to want more power, more money. And if you have anything of value, maybe it means I have less. But life is not like that. Life's not a pie that you can cut up. And if you have 3 pieces, that's 3 pieces less. Life is ever expanding. And through love and through God's provision, there are abundant resources in the world. There is enough to feed everyone. There is enough love to have compassion for everyone. Many people choose to take that view, as I do, and as Hizmet does, as Christianity does. But many people aren't there yet, and that's very frightening. That's very scary. That's been true throughout human history. This time that we're living in is not out of the ordinary. Human history seems to go 2 steps forward and 1 step back. And the only way to get it to going 2 steps forward again is through individual commitment to do the things we know are right, to care for other people. And again, feed the hungry, care for the sick, welcome the stranger. If we do that, we are bringing in the kingdom of heaven now.
Yeah, thanks so much for these very insightful, very informative comments. Before closing, would you like to add anything?
I would just like to say hi, not only to my friends that I've met, but to the friends that I will meet, that I am meeting in Hizmet, in other religions, and in other places in the world. I care about you as you care about me. And I can never repay all the hospitality that I've received. All I can do is just repay it one person at a time. I cook great Turkish food, so if you're ever in Austin, Texas, please come eat at my table.
Thank you so much for these great comments and very insightful information. And I would like to thank you from the bottom of my heart, because you spoke from your heart, and very lovely words for all our friends and for everyone in the world. This is a big embracement of the humanity. Thank you so much and have a great day.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, goodbye for now until the next program. Have a good day.